Hello, and welcome to the Midnight Creepout. I am your Creepmistress Jessica, and as always, here with me tonight is my friend Ben Scurria. Ben!
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Creepmistress Jessica, what do we got tonight? I'm very excited.
Have I got a story for you? It's really not one story. It's really more the aggregation of multiple stories. Hey, Adi! And I know, Adi, you've got him. Ben, I hope you brought your diapers tonight because you are going to poop your pants.
Well, I'm wearing them already, but you're going to have to trust me.
Excellent. I love it. Ben, are you into true crime?
Yeah, I am into true crime. Not as much as my fiance, but
okay.
Definitely into it. I love hearing crazy stories about true crime, and I like unsolved mysteries. Right, yeah. Like true crime where they're like, and here's who did it, and we know everything. I'm like, okay, that's just like reading a police blotter, but you know.
Yeah. Well, that was actually my next question. Was cold cases. How do you feel about cold cases? Cold cases slash, unsolved mysteries. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're my favorite.
Boof Wellington, creepy light every night. Actually, tonight instead of green, we've gone with red though. So I have a fun light bulb that just does it for me.
Allison King, thank you for joining us on Facebook. You should be here. It says I shouldn't be here, but I am, but you should be here.
Hey,
exactly
Allison King. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. How did I miss Allison King? I just like skipped my brain. Just refused to acknowledge Facebook for some reason.
Creeped in there.
She just creeped right in there. Okay, so, Ben, did you know that since 2013, about 620,000 people go missing in the United States each year?
It's a lot of people.
A lot of fucking people. Right? Last year, 2020 was actually the lowest by quite a bit, with only 543,018 people going missing, about 77,000 fewer than average. Thanks, Corona.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say people staying home.
Yeah, right?
That's hilarious.
Exactly. I mean, listen, if you're one of those 77,000 people, you should be happy, I guess.
Corona was bad for kidnappers or for whoever.
It was bad for kidnappers. Anyway, so this is just like another little piece of information that I found. Missing cases in the United States reached their peak in 1997 with 980,712 people going missing. Almost 1 million people went missing in 1997. How crazy is that?
1 million people went missing.
Almost.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a big spike in the mid 90s, like 95 to 97 was just huge. And I don't know why, but it's like a whole other thing that's what happens every time I like research one of these things. Then like it opens up this whole other thing. And I'm like, why in the 1990s did all these people start going missing? Okay, well, I agree with you. I love a good unsolved mystery. I loved unsolved mysteries as a kid. Robert Stack. As a kid, we would watch 911. What was like the 911 show.
So yeah, calls from 911.
Yeah. Or sometimes it would be Cops, which I wouldn't watch now, but I totally did then. A 10-year-old me. There was a 911 show, and then Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack would happen right after that. I love that stuff. Anyway, so what I personally love is when Unsolved Mysteries combine with paranormal phenomena, yeah. And I think that's why the Missing 411 is so intriguing to me. So if you were here last show, so my friend was missing. What do you mean your friend was missing? Just today,
was your
true
friend
story.
Missing today?
Weird, because I jumped to my friend was missing just today, true story. That's upsetting if your friend is actually missing.
Yeah, that freaks me out. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, right? Dang. Yikes. Anyway, segue.
Yeah.
So the Missing 411 is, I guess I should share mine here. I've got 40 slides today. I'm gonna share.
It's a big slideshow today.
I'm gonna share this one. Share. Here we go.
All right.
So my product activation is still an issue. Never. I will never fix it. Don't ask. So the Missing 411 is an ongoing case study of strange disappearances compiled, by former police officer and investigator David Paulides. Benton, you've definitely heard me talk about him before.
Yep.
The cases he investigates are largely focused on the U.S. National Park System and U.S. wilderness, so like the wild places in the United States. She's supposed to be fine. Oh man, her Zoom was not working due to the rain. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You jumped to
your friend. Yeah, gotcha.
So you thought your friend was missing, but she was actually okay. Okay, good. Yep. Well, you know what? As we'll find out, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and just jump right to your friend is missing, because if you don't, you're never going to see them again. So as of 2019, Paulides had studied about 1,200 cases of missing people that fall into what he calls certain profile points that draw similarities between the cases. He's self-published 10 books on the subject, and has produced 2 documentaries since 2012. Oh. Missing 411, which I watched a year ago, I think, is available on Amazon Prime and Hulu. And the Missing 411, The Hunted, which I watched today, is available on YouTube. So what's intriguing about these cases is that in each one, a person they seem to just vanish into thin air. 1 second they're there, the next second they're gonzo. They may or may not be located later, either dead or alive. But in general, what happens is they're usually with a group, they become separated for a short time, and then just vanish. Sometimes not a trace of them is found, despite large search efforts, multiple agencies involved, infrared search helicopters, dog teams, etc., etc. And sometimes there are reports of strange phenomena near the area where the person went missing. the profile points that Paulides has identified are geographical clustering. So what that means is lots of people going missing in the same area. The person gets separated from the group, or what he calls the point of separation. They usually disappear in the early afternoon, which you'll see. A lot of them disappear in the early afternoon. It's so weird. Dogs who try to track them lose their scent quickly. Bodies, if bodies are found later, they're frequently found in previous search locations. So people had already searched that area, and then later the body's found there. Bodies have missing clothes or shoes, and the cause of death is undetermined. Some other ones that he also included that I'm kind of like skeptical about, I don't know, is that disappearances happen near boulder fields, near water. The person has a disability or illness, and then a weather event closely follows disappearances. For me, it's like, yeah, if a weather event closely follows a disappearance, you're going to be less likely to find the person because, I don't know. But I don't know. I think but even then, like, eventually you would find, like, a campsite or, like, clothing or, like, something. And a lot of times they don't even find that.
So can I ask a little bit? So was this guy brought in by people's families because they, like, or was he just like, I'm going to search for these people on my own?
So he says that he was actually approached by 2 national park rangers who had noticed the pattern of, people going missing. And, they knew that he was a former police officer and investigator, like maybe they were buddies, I forget exactly. And they asked him to look into it. And it, like, became this whole fucking thing out of that. That's
all right, cool. Yeah.
Started. What I actually think happened. Okay, so full disclosure, David Paulides wrote a couple of Bigfoot books before this. He's a Bigfoot guy, and so what I think is, like, these park rangers were like, "We think Bigfoot's fucking killing these people or disappearing these people," and he was like, "I'll look into it." I think that's probably what actually happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So tonight I'm going to share with you a selection of missing person stories.
TBD is all about saying that David Paulides is his number one suspect. Who has the most to gain? I mean, he's created a whole show. I'm not gonna.
That's true.
Yeah.
Leave David Paulides alone. So I'm gonna share with you some of the. So sus. Some of the stories that have struck me particularly. And then I'm going to draw some possibly wild conclusions relating to our last show's Tale of the Hopkinsville Encounter. So, our first missing person is Stephen Kubacki. Now, this one is the only one that turns out okay. So I start you with a little taste, and it gets worse and worse from here. So. Stephen
Kubacki, I'm just laughing because I'm like, that's how a small town newspaper would mangle Stanley Kubrick's name. It'd be like, filmmaker Stephen Kubacki. I'm like, no.
Stephen Kubacki was a 23-year-old student who went missing on February 20th in 1978. He was described as brilliant, free-spirited, and an enthusiastic outdoorsman. In February of 1978, he had planned a 1 to 2 day cross-country skiing trip by himself, never a good idea, near Saugatuck, Michigan. He had done this same trip along Lake Michigan before, but this, he was brilliant because of the glasses. Look at those glasses. That's some fucking the brief history of the universe shit right there.
Yeah, those are thick.
Yeah. So the thing that was different about this time is that it was snowing. After skiing for some time, he got to Lake Michigan, and he decided to take off his skis and sit down to rest. But when he got up, his tracks were covered in fresh snowfall, and he became lost. The last thing he remembers is trekking through the snow, numb and exhausted, before he blacked out. The next day, 2 snowmobilers found his poles, skis, and backpack, and reported it to local authorities. A search team found 1 set of footprints heading 200 yards toward the lake, but none heading out. Although the ice was unbroken, they assumed he must have fallen in the lake and drowned. That was until May 5th, 1979, when suddenly
That's
Kubaki...
the following year?
The following year, 14 months later, suddenly Kubaki woke up in a grassy field in the middle of a forest wearing clothes that weren't his. Next to him was a bag that contained running shoes, maps, and glasses that weren't his. He also had a t-shirt. I think he was wearing the t-shirt from a Wisconsin marathon, and later told a reporter that he felt like he'd done a lot of running.
What?
Yeah. He hiked to the nearest town and asked a local where he was. Get ready for this, Ben. They answered that he was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 700 miles due east from where he went missing.
How?
Right. If he went through Canada, it's 11 and a half hours by car.
That is a long run. Yeah, that is some Forrest Gump shit. Yeah, exactly. Forrest Gump. Yep.
Forrest Gump.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Sometimes I just feel like running. His aunt lived about 40 miles outside of Pittsfield in Great Barrington. So he made his way there. His family was shocked at his reappearance as he had been missing for 14 months. The official explanation is that he had amnesia and had been wandering around in a fugue state. But this is extremely rare. Experts have been unable to...
Fugue state, but he was able to get all the way across country.
Right.
I know,
right? I don't know. So experts were never really able to explain what happened to him. And he was intent to find out what happened to him during his disappearance. So he went on to earn a PhD in psychology, but unfortunately was never able to explain it. He actually continued to be an avid outdoorsman. There he is, just a few years ago, at what is a canyon of some kind, Grand or Bryce or something, I'm sure. So there he is, happy as a fucking clam. How crazy is that, though, right? Like,
that's crazy.
What?
Yeah. Like,
Okay,
I guess he could have had a psychotic break of some sort. Like,
Yeah.
that seems more plausible to me than a like fugue state.
I can also imagine, like, I think a lot of times, a lot of these stories, it's likely that the people suffered from hypothermia. So I can understand where he like gets numb and he's cold and he, when you succumb to hypothermia, you start to like, your brain just doesn't work right. You start doing all sorts of stuff that don't make any sense. But like, the craziest part is that he chose Pittsfield.
No reason.
There is no reason to go to Pittsfield. Yeah. Well, he didn't choose it. Maybe his like alter ego, his like other persona did. So some people say this case may be related to what is known as the Lake Michigan Triangle, an area similar to the Bermuda Triangle where strange and unexplained things occur. But that is a whole other episode. We can't even get into that right now. So that's Steve Kubaki. He went missing. How did no one spot him in the in-between? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, Ryan. That's a really good fucking question.
That's
I don't
insane.
know.
I'm staring at that map right now. I'm like looking at the Manitowoc, Wisconsin is just above where that started, and I've been there a few times, and I've been like to the lake there, and I did not know I was so close to a magical creepy triangle. Yeah. Also,
this is right where the bottom point of this triangle is right where he went missing. What was the name of the place? Saugatuck, Michigan. So it's right there. Okay.
All right.
So that he was found, fortunately, although the whole thing is super weird. The rest of the people we're talking about, unfortunately, we're not so lucky. This is James McGrogan. He was a 39-year-old emergency room doctor from Wisconsin who loved the outdoors. On March 14th, 2014, he and 3 of his companions set out to split snowboard on a trail on Vail Mountain in the White River National Forest in Colorado. Split snowboarding is a lesser-known winter sport. It's kind of like cross-country skiing, except it's done on a snowboard that splits lengthwise. Do not ask me any more questions about that. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but that's what they were doing.
Isn't that just skiing? Never mind.
I don't know. I guess it is.
Like it's a board that's cut in half,
But,
and you put one on each foot.
Right. I don't know.
Anyway, that's not what this is about. He was split whatever.
Snowboarding. Okay. So
I have a lot of questions too, MLab. We're just gonna have to leave them up. We're just gonna have to leave them here.
You're gonna have to Google split snowboarding on your own time. At 8:30 in the morning, the group set out to hike a 9-mile trail to the Eisman Hut. This trail is considered quite difficult, and a series of huts were built in the 40s as rest stops and campsites for hikers and skiers. There was a lot of snow in the area that day, up to 8 feet in some places, but the trail was well marked with compacted snow. Although this was a challenging hike, Jim and his friends were experienced and well prepared. Jim carried with him a cell phone, medical supplies, an avalanche beacon, a GPS, a sleeping bag, warm clothing, and plenty of food and water. After an hour and a half and 4 miles of hiking, or split snowboarding, the party stopped to rest. Jim decided to hike ahead, and his friends would meet up with him at the next spot, at the next stop.
Jim.
Yep. You don't do it.
Never do
it. You don't do it. When they arrived, Jim was not there. They eventually got to Eisman Hut in the late afternoon that same day, but Jim was nowhere to be found. By 5:30 p.m., his friends had notified public safety and the Eagle Valley Sheriff's Department. A rescue operation that covered an 18-square-mile area was launched. Over the next 4 days, people searched on foot and by snowmobile for a combined 1,000 hours. 3 helicopters also searched the area. There were no tracks found diverging from the trail, even though it was snow and 8 feet of snow in some places. They never found where his tracks went off the beaten path. And despite the fact that the ground was covered in snow, he was not spotted by helicopters either. So authorities were stumped as to where he could have gone. By March 18th, bad weather moved in, and sadly, it forced the end of the search. 20 days later...
Time, Jambalaya, welcome.
Hey, Jambalaya. Oh, my God. Jambalaya. You can't ask me to read names while I'm trying to get through a 5-page script. It's just not going to happen, man. But it definitely is spooky times. So 20 days later, on April 3rd, Jim's body was found by 3 skiers about 4.5 miles from the trail as the crow flies, which would have been a 14-mile hike. So this is where he was supposed to be, the Eisman Hut, and he was found at the bottom of Booth Falls, which is over here. Now you'll notice this terrain would make it quite impossible for him to go this way. So he must have gone this way, which is a bit longer than to just kind of go this way, but you can't. There's no way. And you can see here that the trail that they came up was this way, and then it's got a couple little switchbacks. And then it's up here. So not good. Yeah, they found his body lying on top of an ice sheet at the bottom of a frozen waterfall at Booth Falls. The search party had gone over that area multiple times, but had never found anything. He was found still wearing his helmet, but his skull was crushed. His gloves, coat, and boots were missing, and his body was mangled, lying in an awkward position. His cell phone and GPS were found in his bag and were still working, and he had packed a backup battery. There was cell service where he was found. So it begs the question, why did he never call for help or use the GPS to determine his location?
Fugue state.
Fugue state, I guess. Although his split snowboard was recovered, his boots were never found.
All right, that's very weird.
Weird.
It says skull crushed and he was mangled. Like did they think a bear or something had gotten him?
No, because his clothing wasn't torn.
Yeah.
So, I think it sounds totally plausible that he had hypothermia and he got lost and exactly. Well, so when you so a weird paradoxical thing when you get hypothermia is that you feel really hot So you start taking your clothes off to try and relieve yourself of being so hot and sweaty. It's just like this weird paradoxical thing that happens. So a lot of times people who experience hypothermia are found without their clothes on. So it's totally possible. Yeah, paradoxical undressing. So it's totally possible if that's the case. And, you know, and then he got lost and he slipped and he fell down this fucking thing and, you know, bumped a bunch of times on the way down. But then why did they not find his body when they searched it the first couple of times? Why did it take 20 days for someone to finally find his body? You know? And it wasn't like, oh, well, because it was covered in snow and then the snow melted. Like, there's no mention of that in any of the stories, in any of the reports, excuse me. So a little, you know, a little bit of a weird one. Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it doesn't mean anything, right? Could be. Could be.
But that one, yep. Yeah, we all love the term paradoxical undressing. It's a very good term.
It is a good term. Let's see. Do we have time? Yeah,
sure. We have time. Yeah, of course we have time.
Okay. So then this next one is Joseph Lloyd Keller. Oh, and here's
that's the waterfall.
Yeah, that's the waterfall. So it's totally possible, you know?
And I suppose it's possible. I mean, that seems hard to get to. So I wonder if did they search it by air or just as we actually get in there? Because if we search by air, I guess you could miss him.
Yeah. So yeah, this next one. Look at this little boy.
Buddy.
I know. This is Joseph Lloyd Keller. Joseph Keller went running with a friend in Conejo's Canyon at 4:30 p.m. on July 23rd, 2015. He was 18 years old and on a road trip with two friends that went through Las Vegas, San Francisco, and the Grand Canyon. His aunt and uncle owned a dude ranch in Conejo's Canyon called Rainbow Trout Ranch in the San Juan Mountains in southwestern Colorado. And that was where Joe and his friends Colin and Christian were staying. Joe was a competitive runner, an open water swimmer, and an obstacle course racer. Although neither were acclimated to the altitude, Joe and Colin decided to go for an hour-long run along Forest Road 250. Joe left his phone and his wallet at the ranch house.
Oh, Joe.
Whoops, mistake number one. And was wearing only red running shorts, blue trail shoes, and an Ironman watch. They weren't very familiar with the area, but the road is well marked, and locals don't consider it an easy place to get lost. Colin was faster than Joe. Joe had asthma as a child, and eventually ran ahead. Colin ran to the right off of Forest Road 250 onto the ranch drive and up behind the lodge. So, what have I done? Okay, so this is Rainbow Trout Ranch, and here's Road 250. So I'm not sure exactly, like, you know, they come out and they turn back around, but I know that I think Colin was coming this way and then went up behind. You can see there's this big ridge back here.
Yep.
Okay. And behind that are some scenic outcroppings. So that's where Colin ran up. Colin ran up this way to try and look off of these scenic outcroppings. But the run became a scramble. You know what a scramble is? So it's like when you're hiking and it's kind of like a boulder field almost. Like it's like rocks and it's very slippery and you need special shoes and sometimes like little things to be able to get over it. So he was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. So he made his way back down to Road 250, Forest Service Road 250, expecting that Joe would have caught up with him by then, but he didn't see him.
Oh, Joe.
Yeah, oh, Joe. So he continued his run and went back to the ranch house and waited. After an hour had passed and Joe had not returned, Colin and Christian drove up the road looking for him. At 7:30, a small group of ranch hands started searching for him up by the outcroppings. At 9:30, 35 people were out looking for him, honking horns and calling his name. At 10 p.m., Joe's aunt and uncle called the sheriff's office, and 2 deputies arrived around midnight. The official search began at 6 a.m. the next day. It was a warm night, so even though, you know, it's nighttime, they're in the mountains, it's like the tail end of July, so they didn't really expect that, you know, he was going to, like, die of exposure overnight. He's an 18-year-old
Even though he had no
kid.
T-shirt, no nothing.
Yeah, but I guess it didn't. I guess they said
Yeah,
that the temperature didn't drop that low. Yeah. So, okay. So the search began at 6 a.m. the next day. It was Joe's 19th birthday.
Oh.
Although a dog scent initially led search and rescue up Forest Road 250, there was nothing to go on, and Joe was nowhere to be seen. 15 dogs, 200 people, and an infrared airplane searched for a week. Volunteers flew planes and drones over the area, and the family posted a reward for $10,000 for any information leading to his recovery. Joe's family, and they searched the river nearby. So Joe was just gone without a trace. After 13 days, the sheriff suspended the search. Joe's family hired 2 private investigators and a private scent dog expert who had a 3-year-old bloodhound named RC, who followed a scent. They used one of his shoe liners, one of Joe's shoe liners. So the dog followed that scent to a lake, but still they didn't find anything. Finally, a year later, on July 6th, 2016, 2 hikers found human remains at the bottom of a cliff along Forest Road 250. DNA testing confirmed it was Joe. Although his body had been found, how he lay there undiscovered for so long in the middle of the search area was still a mystery. In the middle of the summer, so it's not snowing, there's no snow falling, it's not fall, there's no leaves falling. He fucking, the official
wasn't there, and then he was there. Yeah,
right, wasn't there, and then a year later he's there, and then the official explanation is, he fucking climbed up and couldn't make it and fell down, and lay by the road for a year and no one found him. So
that seems real sus. Yeah,
again, it's possible, but it's not likely. You know what I mean?
Shitty searching, yeah.
And so why does it keep happening over and over again? And you think, but he wasn't in the river. He wasn't in the river. He was by the road.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Okay. The next one, we totally had time for that one. Okay, the next one is Thomas Messick. This one is actually covered in the one I watched this morning, the 411 The Hunted. So, if you watch this, you can skip the first 30 minutes of that. Don't. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Hold on. I need a drink.
Please, I'm sure he won't be, but I hope Thomas Messick's going to be okay because he looks like a good guy.
I know, right? Thomas Messick was an 82-year-old man who went missing. Who went missing in northeast New York State near Brant Lake on November 15th, 2015. He was an avid outdoorsman who taught classes. King Senior's got all these. Oh, he's not. Oh, okay. So he's not a stroke victim, actually. He actually had gunpowder explode in his face one time, and it caused him...
it was one time.
It was one time, yeah. He ended up having 136 stitches in his hand and lost most of the sight in that, obviously in this eye. Yikes. Okay, so, yeah, he was an avid outdoorsman who taught classes on hunting and survival. And actually, his wife said, one of the things, he's winking. So, yeah, his wife said that one of the things that he would tell the students in his class is it only takes one time.
Be careful of gunpowder.
Right,
yes.
Exactly. It only takes one fucking time. Yeah, right? I wish someone had told me that. So despite his age and losing most of his sight in one eye, he was described as moving well by his son on the day he went missing. He and his family, let me just see what this next thing is. Okay, yeah. He and his family shared a camp with 3 other families and had gone there to hunt and fish at least once a year for many years. On this particular day, 7 men, mostly fathers and sons, drove from their camp to Lily Pond. So here's the camp. Here's Brant Lake. Here's Lily Pond. So they get up here on Route 8, come down, and then they come down Lily Pond Road to get to Lily Pond. The whole drive takes about 12 minutes. So yeah, they went to Lily Pond at about lunchtime to hunt for deer. Lily Pond Road is a 2-mile dirt road, and it takes about 12 minutes to drive from the camp. They had never hunted there before, but it isn't far from the beaten path. I mean, obviously, the ride from camp, like all the way, over here somewhere, is 12 minutes. So I think when I looked at it from here to here, it's only like 5 minutes, and then there's like a little camp here, and then there's like a little town down here. And then there's another little town up here, I believe. So they parked their vehicles at the pond. There's a little place to park your vehicles down here. And then the 4 older men, all in their 80s, walked back up the path about 100 yards, in about 100-yard increments, and then walked into the woods about 30 to 40 yards and sat down. They were watchers. So here's Al, Sid, Joe, and Tom. What great names, right? Tom was obviously the last one, the farthest up the road, but there's only about 100 yards in between each of them. Okay. The 3 younger men walked the trail around the bottom of the hill and into the woods back towards Tom and the others. The idea being that they would drive any deer they saw towards the older men who were lying in wait. So they called, they were watchers, I guess is what they called it. Tom's wife was adamant that he would not have moved from his spot where he was watching for deer. He was wearing a red plaid cap and a camouflage jacket and was carrying a rifle, a walkie-talkie, and a snack. All 7 men were carrying walkie-talkies on the same channel. Tom's friend, Sid Sharp, who was sitting down here, so about 200 yards away, was sitting 200 yards southeast of Tom in the woods, said that he heard a strange sound in the woods they had never heard before. Although he was reticent to describe it in the documentary, his son said that he described it as a big crack or a bang, almost like a large trap snapping shut. The men hunted for about 2 hours, but never saw any wildlife. The group reconvened at the parking area at about 3 p.m. So they come back down here at about 3 p.m. But Tom did not arrive. They called him on the walkie-talkie, which he was well-versed and he knew how to use, and they got no response. So my first thought is, he had a heart attack. He had a stroke. He fucking died of natural causes sitting on his little rock waiting for the deer to come by, right?
No, I want to go out.
That's how you want to go out? Sitting, waiting for deer?
Sure, sitting in the woods, eating a snack. There are worse ways.
I guess so. Anyway, so they began looking in the area where Tom had entered the woods, calling his name and firing shots so that he could orient himself to it if he was lost. They sent 1 man to call the rangers and continued to look until dark. When night fell, Ben, he died watching.
Oh, I can only hope.
Yeah, so Tina, this is actually a thing that they do a lot, is firing shots, because although, I guess it depends on where you are, it could echo poorly and actually disorient you. But the idea is that you hear the loud noise, the firing shot, or a horn honking, which they also do in this, and they were honking the horn for Joe too. The idea is that you can figure out where it's coming from and orient yourself and walk in that direction. But I agree, it is possible. So I used to live on the Merrimack River. This is where my mom still lives. It's where I grew up. And our house is right across the street from the river. It's not more than 100 feet, right? And, well, it might be a little more than that. It doesn't matter. Anyway, but sometimes you would hear people talking, and it sounded like it was coming from behind our house, but it was actually people on the river, on the other side of the river, and the sound was bouncing off of the hill behind the house. So it's I hear what you're saying. Anyway, so they began looking in the area, right, blah, blah, blah. They sent 1 man to call for the rangers. Okay, when night fell, 3 men went back to the camp, and 3 stayed overnight at the pond, honking their horns, firing shots, and calling out. I mean, and if you look back at this, they were all right, here's that hill, right? So they're all right here. It's not, I wish there was an
it's not deep into the woods.
Right, it's not deep into the woods. I mean, technically there's a wildlife area up here. But it's not what the fuck, right? Okay, so the next morning, a formal search began with dozens of agencies looking for Thomas Messick. Sean Lamourie, undersheriff of the local county's sheriff's office, said that when they were searching, they encountered no wildlife in the area. No deer, no squirrels, chipmunks, nothing, which he found to be strange. The search effort was thorough. Dozens of people searched a gridded area methodically in both directions. They ran bump lines or pieces of wire, twine through the forest to mark out the grid. Tom's son said it looked like a spider web by the end. So what they would do is one guy would like tie a piece of twine to this.
As he walks, yep.
And then he goes, and then he walks, and then he ties it over here. And then they tie more. And so then people stand literally, maybe 5 feet apart. So if they held out their hands, they'd be touching each other.
Yep.
And okay, so yeah, 5 feet. And so then they walk down, and then they come across, and then they walk up this one. And then the next day, they would all stand this way and go that way across the grid. They checked along the side. Oh, yes. Did I say this? Tom's son said it looked like a spider web by the end.
Yeah.
They checked all along the sides of all the nearby roads in case he'd been hit by a car. Divers searched Lily Pond and all the bodies of water within the search area. Up to 300 people and 50 jurisdictions participated in the search each day. Over the course,
TBD. You think they would have gotten the sheriff on it instead of the undersheriff? But,
yeah, right.
But they did their best.
No, they did. So there were so many people searching that people were like, what is this? Like a relative of the governor or something? Like, it was a gigantic search effort. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. So over the course of 11 days, hundreds of volunteers and dozens of agencies with canine teams, infrared search helicopters, and professional divers searched for Thomas Messick. And not one piece of evidence ever turned up. Not his clothes, his rifle, his shoes, nothing. He simply vanished. Police mentioned that even the FBI sent 2 agents to observe the investigation, which is strange because the FBI doesn't typically investigate missing persons unless they're very young. But he speculated that they may have been there to document, their own profile points to match with other similar missing persons cases. Yeah, exactly, or MIB agents. Yeah. So this is also one of the things that Polides points out is that sometimes he doesn't count it as a profile point, but he does mention it several times that agencies that typically would not show up for this sort of thing show up, and you're like, well, why are you guys here? Like,
right,
you don't do this. So it's the FBI in this one, and then the next one. Yeah, exactly. What are the feds doing here? They don't do missing persons unless it's like a very specific thing. And then, and they also show up in the next one too, which is interesting. And the Green Berets. So that's poor Thomas Messick. He was 82. He lived a good life. But still. The next one, and in my opinion, by far the saddest and most interesting. Dennis Martin. In 1969, Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy, had gone with his family to the Great Smoky Mountains. On June 14th, they were enjoying a day of wandering the park and ran into another family, coincidentally, also with the same last name, Martin. At about 2:30 p.m., Dennis, his 9-year-old brother, and a boy from the other Martin family were playing a game of hide and seek, although they had somewhat altered it so that when they got close to another boy's hiding spot, the hider would jump out at the others and spook them, right? Dennis's father watched him hide in a bush and watched the other boys play around. After several minutes, however, he realized that the other boys had passed the bush and Dennis had not jumped out at them. He became concerned and ran over to the bush. But when he got there, Dennis was gone. He looked around. He didn't find, I know, right? Secret bush portal. The Appalachian Trail was actually nearby, and Dennis's father ran down it for 2 miles calling for his son. He didn't find anything and decided that he had gone farther than the boy would have been able. So he returned to the camp and contacted authorities. That same day, another family, the Key family, was also enjoying the day at the park. They stopped at a ranger station to ask where they might see a bear. The ranger pointed them to Rowan's Creek, and they set out. At about 4:30, 2 hours after Dennis disappeared, the Keys heard a strange, blood-curdling scream. Harold Key, the father, described it as, quote, the most sickening scream he had ever heard. The young son pointed and said he saw a big bear, but when Mr. Key followed his son's point, what he saw could not have been a bear. This is a Creepmistress's rendition, okay? It stood upright and was the size of a man. It was big and seemed to be wearing shaggy fur and carried a bundle of cloth over its shoulder. It seemed to be aware of them and crouched as if trying to hide. Mr. Key thought perhaps it was a wild man. There were rumors that people still lived out there in the wild, living off the land, half feral. It started to rain, and that combined with like whatever the fuck this was, they decided it was time to leave. So they made their way back to their car. And
yeah, looking for a bear, not a great idea.
Hey, listen, when I went to Smoky Mountains, I was dead set on seeing a black bear. Black bears, in my opinion, are not as scary as brown bears, okay, first of all. And I really wanted to see one, and I was by myself, but I never found one because I was too scared to go anywhere by myself without my car.
You just had to ask the ranger where they were.
I should have asked. I should have gone to Rowan's Creek. I know better next time. So they made their way to the car, and Mr. Key didn't think more on it until he read the newspaper a few days later. They actually lived nearby. A 6-year-old boy had gone missing from Spence Field in Smoky Mountain National Park. Mr. Key pulled out a pamphlet with a map from the park and saw that where they had seen the wild man here at Rowan's Creek was only 5 miles from where Dennis had gone missing. That's when it clicked. What if the bundle of cloth was not a bundle of cloth at all? Oh, I just got to chill. I chilled myself. I creeped myself out. It's official. I've had my first creep out of the season. I creeped myself out. He called the Forest Service and offered to take them to where he had seen the creature, but they refused. They said, no, we'll come to you. In fact, the Forest Service didn't even tell the Martins about what the Keys had seen. The search was quite large and involved. The FBI and the Green Berets were called, but upon investigation, no one knew who had called the Green Berets or the FBI to come out to the site, so no one knew who contacted them to arrive. Over 1,000 people and several canine teams searched both day and night for 6 weeks straight. But all that was ever recovered of poor Dennis Martin was 1 shoe and 1 sock. What did the Keys see in the woods? And once again, why is there so little evidence? A 6-year-old boy can't possibly get too far on his own.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So, cannibalism. Yeah, that's one of the theories. So what is happening to these people, right? There's hundreds of possibilities. And I know, right? Adia, I warned you.
Yeah, this one freaks me out.
So David Paulides doesn't ever propose an explanation. He just aggregates data and identifies patterns. But his fans have been hard at work developing theories. You know, it could be, like King Senior said, it could be cannibalism. That is a theory that there's wild people who still live in the woods and the caves and the wildernesses of the United States, descendants of bootleggers and miners and that kind of shit, who are completely off the grid and whatever. I don't think that's possible. Well, I think it's totally possible that people live off the grid in California and Oregon and Montana. I feel like Great Smoky isn't big enough. I don't know. I could be wrong. So it's also possible that potato famine. Am I right? They did. Sorry, Kit. They did not specify which shoe or sock it was. Also, do you have left and right socks, Kit? I definitely do not. I do not pay attention to which one goes on which foot.
If you've got the toe socks, I know sometimes. it does make a difference. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, is it possible that something is abducting these people? And also, how does this connect to what we were talking about last week? Or not last week, but last episode.
Last episode.
If you'll remember, oh yeah, Les Stroud's, I just saw that, Jambalaya. Les Stroud's Bigfoot series is great. Les Stroud is actually in the first Missing 411 documentary that you can find on Amazon and Hulu. So last episode, we talked about...
Yeah, I don't think there were toe socks back then. But if there were, that is an important data point. You're absolutely right, TVAD.
Yes, that's
David needs to know about this.
Dennis Martin might have been a pioneer. I can just imagine him. He's panning for gold somewhere.
That's why they took him. They were like, "This is $1 million idea. This kid's onto something.
He knows what he's doing.
Look at those toe socks."
Anyway, so last week we talked about the Hopkinsville encounter, in which small goblin-like creatures terrified a family in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I think I got ahead of myself a little bit. I sure did. Okay. Here is a map of David Pullyday's clusters of missing people. He's identified 59 clusters across the United States. So this is just a map of the clusters that he's identified. So you can see obviously over here on this up and down the coast, and then it goes around this way. There's like a line here of stuff, and then a bunch of empty space for some reason.
Interesting that like right down the center of the country, there's nothing.
Right. I do think it's interesting. It's where the plains are, but also Texas is a huge population area, and there's nothing in here yet. It also just might be that he hasn't gotten there yet.
All those people have guns.
Yeah, that's true. And then obviously up here, up by the lakes, and then obviously big area in like Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yeah, look at that.
And then obviously up and down the Appalachian Trail, right? So, isn't there a map of missing people that matches up with cave systems? Well, funny you should ask, because here is a map of caves in the United States. You'll notice that it goes up and down. There's up and down the border, the West Coast here. There's a line that comes this way. There's a line that comes that way.
Yeah.
So like here's a line, here's a line. Then what's interesting here is that there's a lot of caves right here in Texas, but no missing persons so far, but it's also probable that he just hasn't gotten there yet. Then, a little bit up here in the lakes region, but then obviously big spot right here in Kentucky and Tennessee, right? And then clearly
right up,
up and down the Appalachian Trail. And okay, so then I also saw a thing that was like a guy on a blog that was like debunking this, because there was a map that was this, but then it also had a bunch of caves like all in black dots all over it. And then of course, like the caves on that matched up to the caves on a map of caves in the United States. But I found this version of the map that doesn't have the black dots on it. So it's a lot more clear that you can see that it really does kind of match up.
Yeah.
Like fucking yikes, right? So
back to Huntsville, or no?
So last week, with 6 minutes to go, last week we talked about the Hopkinsville encounter and the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, in which small goblin-like creatures terrified a family in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Now, I first learned about this case from the documentary series Hellier, which is available on YouTube. There's 2 seasons. In this series, a paranormal investigation team is contacted by a man who says his family is being terrorized by similar-looking creatures. He believed that they were coming from an old mine at the edge of his property. He sent pictures of what he claimed were footprints and actual photographs of the creatures. So the footprints are kind of like an elongated ball of the foot with 3 toes at the top. Now, what a lot of people have noticed about these is that these pictures contain dermal ridges. You can see them in this one, right? You can see them up in the toe section, across the feet here. And this one you can kind of see them here, but I feel like this one is the most compelling.
Yep.
Dermal ridges are the things in your hands and feet, right? They're kind of like your fingerprints from your hands and feet. And they are very difficult to fake. And that's actually how you can tell like an obviously fake plaster cast of a Bigfoot print from like one that's considered like possibly authentic because of the dermal ridges. So that's interesting. And then some people were like, oh, that's just an emu footprint. Well, fuck you. This is an emu footprint. So that's not an emu footprint. Like,
that is not an emu footprint.
That's not even fucking close, right? Tonight's episode is called Paradoxal Undressings, and Dermal Ridges. Yeah. Hey, listen, if we ever actually get into Bigfoot, you're going to hear a lot more about dermal ridges. Okay. So, and then he sent them photos of what he said were actually photographs of the creatures he took at nighttime. So here's the first one. You can't really see much, right? This like looks like it's probably a tree here, and then like it's a face. Maybe this is an eye, or I don't know. Who knows what's happening here?
Okay, I just got the creeps.
Then there's this one.
Okay, that's not a real picture. That's
okay. Well, at first glance, it's like, what the fuck is this? But when you think about it, it could be a profile.
Go back to okay.
Right. So here's the eye socket. Very pronounced cheekbone, jawline. You know?
Okay.
Could be. Here's the third one. So here's a tree. Right? And then this is
leaves.
A creepy, and then there's leaves in the front, obviously, a creepy little thing. This is my rendition of the outlines. And then this is what, you know, their own artist's rendition of what they think it was. Who knows? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, that third one's freaky. Yeah, I agree.
What? Oh yeah, the third one. I know.
Third one, yeah.
All right. Ooh. So here's Hellier, this is where these photos were reportedly taken. Here's Hopkinsville, Kentucky, where the 1955 case took place. So this same investigation team from Hellier actually was able to catch up with a daughter of Lucky Sutton, who's still alive. There's actually, at the time of Hellier coming out, there were 2 people who were there at the original sighting in Hopkinsville who were still alive, but they refused to talk to anybody. So the daughter of Lucky Sutton, she revealed to them that there was an old mine on the edge of the property right where Billy Ray Taylor had first seen the UFO fall straight down behind the tree line. So you'll note, you know, this is Kentucky, obviously. Here's Hellier. Here's Hopkinsville. Here's cave systems in Kentucky. So here, you know, there's caves obviously over here in Hopkinsville. Not so much over here in Hellier. There's a couple of little spots, right? Cave density is what this is.
Yep.
And then here's mines. So obviously not a whole lot of mines over here in Hopkinsville, but a shit ton of mines over here in Hellier, right?
Yeah.
You'll also note that where there's mines, there are not caves, and where there are caves, there are not mines. Presumably because they hooked up to each other. You don't have to mine where a cave already is, right?
Truth.
Which means, and we also know that Kentucky is home to the longest cave system in the world, Mammoth Caves. And Tennessee, below it, actually has the most caves in the United States. So very creepy. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying, you know, I'm not saying, I'm not.
But we're just saying, yeah. Yeah. Could it be the little mine people? Sure. Could it be Bigfoot or some sort of creature like that in the woods? Yeah, I think it probably could be, at least some of them. I think those are probably the 2 most, I don't know, easily explained things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to go too into it because it's already 1 o'clock, but there's this whole other theory out there that aliens aren't actually from alien places, and like Bigfoots aren't of this dimension, aren't of this universe, and that these creatures and UFOs that we see are actually coming from other dimensions or multiverse theory, whatever, right? Who knows? I don't know. We're not gonna. That's a little teaser for another day. Oh. The Fae. It could be the Fae. It very much could be the Fae.
It could be the Fae.
Hold on, let me go back to the thing that I love the most. This shit is just like, what the? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
And like, this is pretty compelling, but like the 3 distinct lines. Oh, whoops. I mean, that's pretty compelling. 1, 2, 3, and then over here. Oops. And then over here, 1, 2, 3. It's just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. Yeah, that's real creepy.
Just a thought.
Stay out of caves, everybody. Nothing good happens in caves. Like, really.
That's true. And then also, since we're talking about this and all these people who went missing, I figured I would, wait your book. I'll not accidentally fall into an interdimensional portal. So I did think that maybe it was wise to just go over, if you're gonna go out into the national forest or a national park or the wilderness in any such way, shape, or form, always tell people where you're going. Always have a defined time of when you expect to be back. And if you're not back, know that that person you told is going to call the authorities, because time is of the fucking essence, right? Like, unfortunately, a lot of times search parties didn't even start until the next morning for some of these cases, because people were like, oh, they'll show up. I'm sure they'll show up. Like poor Joe, no one even contacted the authorities. He went missing at 4:30. Okay, so 5:30, he went missing at 5:30 in the afternoon, and the cops didn't show up until midnight. Like, not cool.
Yeah.
Bring your phone. Always bring your phone with you. Always have extra juice, and be prepared. Like, you might get lost. Like, if you get lost, like, don't fucking leave where you got lost from. You want to stay where you are unless you can get into like an open air area where a plane can see you. You know what I mean? Like, you want to like
stay put. Yeah.
Stay put, hunker down, find water, make a shelter. Don't fucking move. Have a buddy. Don't go alone. I think that's the biggest one, Kit. That's the biggest one. Like, do not leave. Like, there are cases where people leave the sight of other people for 20 minutes and they are gone forever.
Yeah, don't do it.
Forever.
Always have a buddy. Always have a buddy. Oh. All right, Jess. We have reached the part of the show where you tell everybody else where they can see you. What else have you got going on this week?
Yeah, well, this week, on Sunday at 7 p.m., I will be doing an episode of Simly the Jess Presents Quarantine Action Parenting. And then QAW will have its triumphant return on July 29th, Thursday, for a new episode of Pandemic. And I imagine at least one of my characters will be on it. So you should totally come back and watch that.
Very excited.
While you still can. Wink, wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
Ben, where can people see you?
Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Here on the channel. I'm hosting a show called What's Going On. Super fun. We all just hang out and talk, and it's just a big old round table of awesomeness. So join us on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously you're going to want to come back on the 23rd to see both of us here again for the Midnight Creepout, the second episode of the month. We do the show every the second and fourth Fridays of the month at midnight. So like technically that's Saturday morning, but like whatever. And you should definitely come back because we've got a whole long list of good stuff that we're gonna come at you with. I'm thinking, Ben, reincarnation or multiverse theory.
I've got a couple good reincarnation stories too. So
okay, maybe we'll do. Let's call it reincarnation, right? So on the 23rd, we're going to do reincarnation. And then who knows? Who knows what we'll do after that?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, very exciting. So, my friends, I'm so glad that we will do multiverse. I'm so glad you came to join us. Ben and I, we certainly hope that you had fun. We hope you enjoyed yourself. We hope that you come back on the 23rd at midnight. But most importantly, Ben, we hope you're creeped out.
Creeped out. Bye.